Hey, this is Darrell Evans. Thanks for stopping by to watch today's show. Listen, when you're done watching the show, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought. Let us know your 2 or 3 takeaways right here beneath this video on the comment section. Also, if you want to hear more of our shows, just hit the like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notifications. That way you never miss a show in today's content. The MindShift Podcast is all about real stories that deliver real strategy that'll help you find real success. My name is Darrell Evans. Let's get into the show. Kevin McGovern, welcome to the MindShift Podcast. How you doing, my friend?
Good, brother. Great to be with you here today on this beautiful Tuesday morning.
I'm so excited to have you here. And I say that to a lot of my guests, but Kevin, you and I have known each other now since around 2005. And it was at a time when I was growing another business at that time, early stages, and my role had changed. I went from being sort of a top producer, salesperson, running a little small operational, team, to all of a sudden growing an enterprise, so to speak. And I needed some help. And boy, let me tell you, you came in and rescued this brother right here. Let me tell you.
Right on, man.
So listen, I want to start really quick. We're going to get into some really great stuff. I can't wait for the audience to hear what you're going to share. But let's start really with a quick background story. Kevin, where are you from? Where you been? How'd you get here?
Yeah. So awesome. Yeah, so grew up in the northern suburbs of Chicagoland. So lived there most of my life, middle class, blue collar type of deal. Jobs early on, right? Had to, wanted a pair of blue jeans, pair of Levi's versus the Kmart jeans, right? You had to go work the newspaper route, right? You wanted the Schwinn 10 speed, right? You had to do that work, right? So there was nothing, I wouldn't say I wasn't given anything, but I wasn't given anything, if you know what I mean, right? Which we've seen, some of that obviously over the last 20, 30 years, even with our own kids, right? So just grew up in that, always worked hard, athlete growing up, baseball, tennis, basketball, just was part of the deal. Great group of friends. And started early on, once I turned 16, got in the grocery business, had my uncle was in there and just really learned, again, how to work, right? And how to work hard and elevated up quickly through that. By the time I was 19, was in a management position in a junior management training platform. And school wasn't my deal. I went to junior college but it just wasn't my deal.
Right.
My deal was work, and eventually was leadership.
Wow.
So went through that journey in that industry. Little life change piece happened for me in my mid 20s, and it was, I'm not ashamed to say it, but it was time to put away something, and that was the demon alcohol. And, been sober since December 11th of 1983.
Nice.
So it's like, really? Yeah. So that's a lot of one days at a time, right, brother? So
man, a lot of them, man.
Yeah. So all good. So anyways, started me around a group of folks that were maybe a little more adventurous than I was. I mean, I had a great gig going, was by this time a manager in the grocery business, and found out about this thing called sales, right? And ended up making a transition into the sales industry. At the very beginning was in, basically, if you've ever seen the movie Tin Man, I was a Tin Man, right? Had my 3 leads a day, went out selling windows and siding, baby. So
I love it.
So that was the start, but it was also the start of becoming a learner about the trade, about the craft of people in sales. So the Zig Ziglars of the world, right? The Jim Rohns, the mentors, the seminars that we're gone to, that was part of that learning journey from others, right? That there was somebody ahead of me that could teach me. So for the first time in my life, understood that process, which led me to then a year into it. Actually, that company went out of business after about 6 months. It's like, okay, well, dude, you just gave up your career in the grocery business. But you know what, Darrell, it was a big turning point in my life because I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back into, I'm working for it, right? The big company. Okay. So So I was a fighter, right? I mean, as a fighter, and it's like, okay, what next? Started a kitchen and bath design studio. It's like, really, dude, you did some windows and siding, but me and this partner, we knew that this was the next place to go. So I actually did that, actually met my wife in that industry. She was our dialer. This was back in the days when we had the crisscross directories, right? Dialing for dollars.
Dialing for dollars, baby.
So, Deb was awesome setting appointments, and, built a cool little enterprise there. And actually then had a fellow that I met that said, hey, dude, you ought to get in this mortgage business. I'm like,
right.
I got my own business. I don't need to come work for you. Right.
Right.
6 years? Yeah. 6 years later. So now we go to 1993. It's like, hey, how's that mortgage business going? Well, guess what? Rates had gone down to 7% for the first time in like forever. Mm-hmm. And I made a transition. I said, I'm in, let's go. And I'll tell you, Darrell, when I made that decision, I made the decision to go all in. Right. I didn't get into the mortgage business to try it.
Right.
And I just hear some people will do that. There's like, well, I'm going to try this.
All the time.
It's like, no. I got 3 kids and a little 2-bedroom house. Okay. I ain't getting in this to try it. Right. Let's go. Let's make it happen.
I gotta cut you off, but you're unpacking so many nuggets real fast. These are some things that, in our professional relationship, these are things like I didn't know. Number one, no wonder we clicked. Number one, my first job was a paper route. I had a Huffy bike.
Right on.
It wasn't a Schwinn. It was a Huffy with a banana seat.
There we go. Right?
Thing. My second job, I was a courtesy clerk in a grocery store.
There we go, baby.
This is unbelievable. And obviously, fast forward to the point where Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn, I studied Zig Ziglar in the early 90s. I mean, these are a few facts that I didn't even know about you.
Right.
So, and then of course, we linked up in the mortgage division. So go ahead and continue with the mortgage side.
Yeah. So
all those things you just don't know.
No, and the cool part about this, just the story that we're having this conversation, how many times do we just try and get to the end?
Right.
We just try and get to the end. It's like, well, let me see what I can solve, even on the coaching. Let's see what I can solve for today for Darrell, for whoever. And we don't listen to the story. It's like, dude, where did you come from? Because as a result of the story, I can look at patterns. I can look and see, well, I know that dude will work hard. He just hasn't worked hard in a while. We got to come back to where he came from. Right. So this journey, right, this process of then coming into the business and saying, you know what, I can distinctively remember a kitchen design client come to me and say, hey, would you redesign? And I'm like, well, let's see, I can make a few $100 here to do that design. Okay. Or I can make the next prospecting call. Or I can learn the next guideline. Okay. So was the $200 going to be more important, or the learning of the system and the process and the way, I call it learning your way of this new business, which was more important? So real quickly is like, now wait a second. He said, if I do 1 loan, they'll pay me $900 a loan. And if I do 10 loans, right, they'll pay me $9,000. It's like, are you kidding me? Right. I'm going to learn this business.
Right. Versus a $200 kitchen design.
Right. So that started that whole process into the business, got in the business, double income. And it was just a result of being with a great company, some great mentors that trained me up, that kicked me, that said, you're not a professional visitor. That's great that you had realtor appointments, but we're in the loan closing business. Okay.
For those of you, let me stop you. For those of you that are not in the mortgage industry listening to this and not in the real estate industry, you won't understand the comedy of that very statement. I mean, the fact of the matter was, most realtors, most lenders in that industry nationwide, I can't speak to outside the United States, the majority of them, and Kevin, you said it earlier, you didn't get in the business to try it out, right? And I want to, kind of state a point that we talk about here in this idea of mind shift. I always say that, are you interested or are you committed?
Amen.
There's two big alleys that
Big
live. Are
difference.
you interested in that, or are you committed? And I used to, of course, I hired hundreds and hundreds of loan officers back then and trained, well over 400 or 500 at that time. And so I used to challenge myself with that same thing. But the whole idea was going to visit the realtors was part of the process, but just visiting them wasn't part of the deal. Anyway, just interesting stuff.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, and again, I just think that there's these things that we learn, some through trial and error, but I think the big place that we learn is through mentorship, is through others that have trudged ahead of us in this journey. And am I going to be open and willing enough to listen to them, or am I going to say, I got it, I know it? Right. And we've been around those people, Darrell, right? Whatever we call them, they're know-it-alls, right? Don't want to go there. Don't want to go there. Right. Yeah. So it's just this process of learning led to action, which led to tracking, which led to ultimately what? Results. And those results led to the next opportunity was then, sales manager, EVP, and eventually president of the same company that I started at, 7 years later.
Wow.
So it's like, okay, well, that's a pretty cool journey, right? And then building, the next platform and then really starting to, being coached. So I started getting coached in 1998 professionally, even though I've had other mentors around me. I was professionally being coached. Yeah, I wrote a check. Yeah, there's a.
Let's distinguish the difference here. You can have mentorship and you can have coaching. When you write a check, you're in the game.
Different deal, right?
Different, right?
And I think as I look back into those, the late '90s, I mean, it wasn't nearly as prevalent today from a coaching. I mean, we see it everywhere today. Yeah. It wasn't a predominant profession. Back in that point. So I'm eternally grateful to those brothers at Building Champions and what they build. Yeah. And then just, again, continued on this journey of clarifying my vision, clarifying my focus, clarifying my priorities, creating my personal life plan, my personal business plan. And then ultimately getting to the point that we built something amazing, to the point in 2006 where it's like, okay, well, what next? We had a separate consulting company. It's like, okay, well, Tom's over there doing that. I'm running this mortgage gig, but my heart had changed to say, I'm blessed. I'm blessed financially. Never imagined, right? Going back to the three little kids in the 2-bedroom house to now, living on the golf course and blah, blah, blah. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like, really? Did that just happen?
Time between Florida and Chicago. And
Did that all just happen? So I think that process of working through that and saying, I need to go help others. I need to share with others what's been given me. That was the change. And truly to a conviction in my heart that now's the time, to the point of, we sold our company May of 2006. Totally lucky, for those of you that understand what went on in the mortgage industry the next couple of years, right?
Around 7, 8, 9, that good timing.
So and became a full-time coach. So I actually went to work as an executive coach, and that's where Darrell, we met. In that first few years in the coaching circle. So that all transitioned to a great experience. I committed to, here's the deal, when I first started coaching, again, did I get in it to try it, Darrell?
You absolutely did not.
Right. Okay.
You absolutely did not.
Okay.
So every 2 weeks you were clearly up my butt. So I mean.
Well, but I did give a timeline.
Yeah, you were there to help me do what I said I wanted to do.
That's all.
And that, speaking of the fact that you, just to back up just a little bit, you talked about how even in that time period, so I'm in the industry, I'm getting in the industry at that time in 2000. I'm going from, I don't know anything with a desk and a telephone to 3-4 years later, I'm a top producer at this one company, to just a year or so after that, I'm introduced to the idea of partnering and opening a new mortgage company myself. Right. And then all of a sudden it was almost like a flashback to my days when I was an assistant manager at Taco Bell to become a general manager. And I went from kind of running the line to running the building, right? Completely different paradigm shift, completely different mindset. So here I was again, and I'm like, I have no idea how to grow a mortgage company. And so that's when we crossed paths. And you were helping me transition from this idea of just being a top producer to being a leader.
Right.
And it wasn't that I hadn't had any leadership experience. I had plenty. However, I'm in a new space. You've got your footprint on this game since, a decade or so, or if
Yep.
not. So yeah, it was just a wonderful opportunity. And to your point, building champions, had they not put the platform together, we wouldn't have crossed paths. So really thankful to those guys as well.
No doubt. Well, and I think the back to the commitment side, it was I when I got in, like I said, I wasn't getting in to try it, but I was committing to a minimum of 3 years. I don't know why I said 3 years, whatever. I said 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it ended up being 3.5 years. And then still was connected to the industry a little bit on the mortgage side, and went and did a project in 2010, which guess what? Didn't work out, brother.
Yeah.
Didn't work out.
Right.
And went through 2011 as probably my lowest income year ever. Okay.
Yeah, let's pause there for a second, because we always talk about this on the show. We talk about these moments, these pivot points in life, when life knocks us down. How do we get back up? Talk a little bit about that experience so you've come off of a good run of success. You pivoted and exited an industry at the right time. You're financially blessed. Stay tied to the industry. What went wrong, and how did you address it? How did you adjust to it? Like, what were some of the 2 or 3 mindsets that guided you through that window?
So part of the piece was there was a decision to be made whether I wanted to go back in, right? And when I say back in, produce, build a branch, whatever, or I don't know, coach. Right. Something else.
And just to be clear, that was a coaching scenario, right? You were continuing down the path of coaching, just to distinguish.
Well, this consulting gig was inside of a mortgage company. So it was inside of a region. So I was kind of brought in to kind of help build something out.
Okay.
Just whatever. I don't need to give all the gory details. Wasn't the right time, place, people, didn't work. So made the decision to say, I'm not going back, not sure on where I'm at going forward. Okay. But what I will do during this time period, I'll give of my time. Okay. So ended up working with a nonprofit in the inner city of Chicago for a season, a few years of dedicated time to help them build their leadership team, kind of gratis deal.
That means free for anybody. That's a Latin word for free. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That is a Latin word for free. Correct.
So just for clarification, folks.
Yeah, right.
You don't always get paid when you're putting value in the marketplace.
No, and again, part of the blessing was that I had earned and saved, so I was able to sustain.
Right.
Through that time period, until the phone rang from someone and said, "Hey, would you coach me?" Right? And I was like, "Would I coach? I guess I told you no previously because I was doing this consulting gig and it would have been a conflict of interest. But hey, I'll coach you." So that started the journey back into full boat. You know what? Why not? Let's go. So that brought me to another relationship with a former coaching client to start a new coaching company called Making Better Happen.
I remember that.
So I went back to getting client one. I went back to client one.
Right. It all starts with one, right?
But it starts with the first one. And I said, okay, then what next? And that began the process of going back into my planning work, clarifying my vision. Where do I want to go? I mean, I still have these workbooks. This is something I found probably in 2012, 11 or 12, from Darren Hardy, called the Living Your Best Year Ever Workbook.
Yeah.
Okay. Personally, still utilize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I've got other stuff that we teach, inside of the platform I'm in today, but that brought me back. That was my first piece. Ended up doing a trade show, ran into a leader of one of the top companies in the country, said, hey, wouldn't you coach some of my managers? That led to clients 5 through 20 through 30, right? And brought me over the next season to the point of, wow, okay, I've gone from nothing to survival. So I got to survival in year 1 economically to thriving in year 2.
Right. And now the total number of individuals you coach is at what number?
So I personally coach about 65 individuals.
Wow.
And oversee a coaching company that has 102 coaches and 800 clients.
Jeez, unbelievable. But it all started with a slide down the mountain, to have something not work out, to take a minute to reframe, to say, hey, you get a phone call.
Yep.
You say yes to that phone call, which is client number 1, which is
Correct.
starting at the beginning. No matter how good you were in the past, no matter how successful you were, people don't understand the cycle. The cycle is, hey, I had this thing, so now I just want to automatically go to the moon. No, it doesn't work that way. It starts with 1, and then repeating the process, and then growing and scaling. So incredible story.
Yep. And Darrell, how many times do we hear this with individuals that continually bring up what? The past.
Past. They live in it.
Back in the day.
Right.
It's like,
I remember
back when I was at blah, blah, blah.
I remember when, before the XYZ,
Doesn't matter.
And let's just stay there for a quick second, because we're talking about why is that such a problem? Why do we, your own perspective, why is it, because I have one, why is it that we stay stuck in the drama of the past versus the vision for the future?
Work.
They don't want to do it.
It's about doing the work again. No, seriously, I know this may sound really simplistic,
right,
but it's, do you still have gas in the tank to get after it and do the work?
Yeah,
and until I relearn, okay, how to do the work again in a balanced and simple way, they can't break through.
Say it again. So until they relearn, say it again.
How to do the work in a balanced and simple way, they won't do the work. So their mindset is been skewed so badly, okay, or has gotten elevated in their mind so high about what they did versus who they're going to become and what they're going to do next, they can't break through.
So let me I'm going to dive you into a quick coaching session, and I want to make sure that we get to the 3 big pillars of the way you lead your clients through life and business planning. Impacted my life in a big way, and I know you've just improved on that formula. But let's talk to your coaching now, that person who doesn't have a simple, balanced way to get back to the work. Give us 2 or 3 nuggets on what are you actually walking them through to get them to shift mindset? Just talk to us a little bit about that. I think that would be extremely valuable.
Yeah. I think the first piece I have to get to, and it's really answering 3 questions. 3 simple questions, but very difficult questions. Number 1, what do you really want? Okay. Number 2, what do you need to do to get what you want? Thirdly, which may be the most difficult, how bad do you want it? No, seriously.
Right. What do you want? What do you need to do to get what you want? And then how bad do I want it? Unbelievable. And you know what's interesting? You said the third one is the most difficult. Why is that?
Again, because I think many are living in the past.
And they don't want to do the work.
It's just, I call them in the business, in this circle mortgage space that I'm in, I call them legacy loan officers.
We have the same phrase in our world called legacy business owners, because in our world it's funny you're saying, Kevin, it's just unbelievable the dialogue that we share. And just audience, as you're listening to this, Kevin and I get together once every 3 to 5 years or so when he's in Vegas which I think it's been 2014, 15. I know you had Making Better Happen, which was
correct.
That was the last time I think we physically saw each other.
Yeah, that could have been 14, maybe. Yeah,
14, something.
13, 14.
We're 2019 now. It's been 5-6 years since we've actually seen each other physically outside of social media and telephone. But it's interesting. We use the same conversation in business when we're talking to companies for marketing and sales, and they're stuck on the old days when telephone, radio, and billboard used to work, and when referrals were a mile a minute, and when their consumer had little to focus on outside of the very few channels of marketing and advertising. In today, with social media, search engines, mobile devices, and all that, they cannot wrap their hands around it, and they want to just take it back to the old day. Anyway, interesting stuff, but not wanting to do the work, living in the past. How do you get someone? So talk about that first thing. When they tell you what they want, how do you know that what they say they mean?
By their actions.
So
no, seriously.
Number two, right?
Yeah. I have to see. So I mean, we look at and the organization I'm part of, Fairway Mortgage. I mean, it's just been a crazy ride, to the point of over 7,000 employees. I mean, crazy growth. But there's a whole big bucket of folks that are challenged to grow. Correct. So the first place I've got to get to with them is, number one, do you have the drive to grow? Do you have the drive to succeed? If I can't get them to at least raise their hand that put me in, coach, I can't help you. Correct?
Right.
I mean, Johnny could be at the end of the bench raising his hand and saying, well, Johnny didn't quite have the tools, but Johnny's great in practice, right?
Yeah. And maybe the way I grew up, every kid had to play a certain number of minutes. Like, that's not the way it works in real life.
No, right?
It works.
Different deal.
Yeah, different game.
So I've got to get buy-in. So I can only get buy-in if I allow them to what? Weigh in. And I can only get them to weigh in properly if they'll assess personally where they're at. What's my current reality?
Speak their truth, right?
Yeah, I've got to get there. And then I've got to give them some simple, guidelines to succeed. And for many of them, succeed again.
Right. So before we started this recording, and I want to make sure we get this in, it's amazing. Like, I hope listening audience, you're picking up on, first of all, I want to make sure you understand Kevin is responsible for growing, coaching, and mentoring 60 plus individuals himself. Correct. I had a privilege to be one of those people 15, 16 years ago. In addition to that, he's got 100 coaches spread across, I think you said 800 clients?
Correct. And
the organization has gone through an unbelievable growth curve. And this is not just one of those economic this ain't the stock market, right? This is work. There isn't anything magical that takes a company that can put 100 coaches in place. And you started with what, one?
Yeah, I mean, me, Sarah Middleton, the owner of the company, Steve Jacobson, said, "Hey, let's go. Let's build a new model. Let's create a player coach model."
Unbelievable. And
totally unique. So they bought in.
Mm-hmm.
I came in. The three of us communicated. We put together a focus group, picked some top players in the company, said, "Let's go. We're gonna build a model."
And let's also state for the record, I could be off on the timeline of this, but Kevin, isn't this in or around the 3-year window?
Correct. Yeah, we just had our coach summit last week in Charleston, South Carolina, celebrating our 3rd year.
Man, come on. Listen, everybody listen to this. Take note to what we just talked about. So Kevin's coming out of a season that didn't go well with a new coaching consulting gig, gets a pivot, gets a phone call, one phone call.
One call. Yep.
One call. And then it leads to a conversation with an organization that leads to one or a couple of people saying, here's the idea. Here we're going to go. Here's the inspiration for the idea. And now what does it take to go from inspiration to realization, which is, and again, we don't have time to really unpack every single thing, but to go from one coaching client to 800 clients, from one coach to 100 coaches, absolutely incredible. Kevin, I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about the 3 pillars high level pillars
Sure.
that you walk people through. And, we talked a little bit offline. What is, because you always said that it comes down to the person and whether they're willing to do the work and confront the truth. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%.
Let's do that first question. That first thing you really are trying to get them to come to their truth and share that with our audience.
Yeah, so the first piece, and there's really three pieces that we're going to look at to help them understand three places. Where have I been? So I've got to go through a process, and I've done this, guys, for, I don't know, I think I did my first year in review in probably 2001, 2002. Mm-hmm. So a year in review process, very clear, very concise, couple page document, probably a hour and a half of thinking, writing, clarifying, where have I been? Okay, so where have I been? Number two, what's my current reality? I have to get honest with myself and assess, where am I at now? What frustrates me? Where am I a little brokenhearted? What is that thing, that itch that's there that I'm not properly getting taken care of, mm-hmm. right? So current reality. And then vision, where do I want to go? Seriously, that's that question. What do you really want? I put some time constraints to it. So it's like, you've heard, 5-year vision, 10-year vision. Dude, let me just ask you, what does it look like 12/31/2020? Right? Get me to a year.
Right.
Seriously, what does it look like fully operating, right? Written out in a present tense. I mean, I just had some fellas that I've coached for years. They're doing this on their own. They just had a retreat at a beautiful lake house up in north side of Charlotte, North Carolina. It's like, they do the work. It's like one of the mentees, got on the call. It's like, hey, I never had done that before. Never really, really, really wrote it like a story.
Let me ask you this, because and I might be off on my years. I thought it was 2005 when we were working together. It might have been 5, 6, 7, or late 5, 6, 7, 6, 7.
Yeah, probably 6.
Okay.
Probably 6, mid 6.
So a lot of people listening to this show may not know this, but I'll state for the record, and there are some people close to me that know this, but there was a similar process you made me walk through back then. And I don't know if you remember the instructions, but you were like, you need no less than 8 hours solid. I prefer you to take 24 hours solid, where there's no phone, no text messaging, no nothing. Leave your work. In fact, leave your family, leave your kids, go get isolated. Because when you ask those questions, where am I at? Where have I been? Where's my current reality? And what do I have as a vision for the future? I think as humans, we can superficially, without peeling back the layers. And Kevin, the exercise you had me go back then, I'm sure you've got modified versions of that. But man, let me tell you, there were tears on that day, and there wasn't nobody pinching me or poking me or slapping me in my face. There were just, there was a part of that exercise. I don't know if you still do it to this day.
100%. Yep.
But man, you had me write my eulogy.
Right.
And so I just want to state for the record that work is still digitally archived in my Dropbox. I refer to it once a year. In fact, you may not know this, but for those people that don't know, you're partially responsible for me leaving the mortgage industry, not because you thought I sucked.
Right.
But listen, it was some of that work back then that made me get to where there was a pivot point in the industry where I was examining that document and examining what of course you didn't have me just go through a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. You actually had me write a 25-year life plan.
Yep.
I still have it. Obviously things have changed in and out of that, but in general, that there were certain things, because I've done the work at the heart level, those things don't change, whether it was 2005. Those, in fact, were probably there 2001, 1992, etc. Because what we really want internally were there. Anyway, I just want to simply say that that type of work, it's hard. There's a question I ask, and I just finished asking my team in our company, if we were sitting here, and it's a kind of a universal question I've been asking for a couple decades now, if we were sitting here a year from today and we were looking back over the 12 months that had just passed, what types of things would had to have happened for you to say that this was the most incredible year of your life? And in general, that's a different way of me asking what's your vision.
Very similar.
Right?
Yep.
Very similar,
Yep.
right? And so I've asked each one of my team as we come into this year, we've got some massive goals. But Kevin, these are some very deep questions. What else would you like to share about, like, so they get into this process? What are the 2 or 3 pitfalls or hurdles that you find people? You already talked about one earlier, right? Which is sitting too long in their past, right? It's important to state the facts.
Right.
How do you get them to leave it, right? Is it always about where they want to go?
Yeah, no, if I can't get them to do this thinking work and writing work, there's little hope. Because what there's a gap between our current reality and where we want to go. So if I don't help them clarify where they want to go, then I'm just kind of throwing tactics at them. Hey, make more sales calls. Hey, do this. Let's track that. Right. And I do all that, but there's no depth to it if I can't clarify where they really want to go. Does that make sense? Yeah. So to see a guy go from whatever, a $9 million to a $19 million guy, it's like, well, there's some guys that'll be stuck at 9 or go to 7 or right. But it's like, there was a compelling piece for him to get to 19. You know what his piece was? I know this is going to sound crazy. He wants to be a coach.
Wow. So he wanted to lead by example.
Correct.
He wanted to say to his students that I doubled or tripled my business.
I doubled my business.
I can show you how to do it.
Come follow me.
That's awesome. But
right?
That was it. That was his reason.
But that's all. So until we get those pieces clarified, it's going to be a fight. And it shouldn't have to be a fight.
Right. Real quick as we wrap up.
Yeah.
How would you recommend anyone listening to this today who has likely done various goal setting? Of course, at the time we're recording this episode, it's early 2020. So New Year's right on the top of us, New Year's resolution, all that jazz. And we know how resolutions work, but what would you share with our audience as we get ready to close on how do you really dig into the real reasons you want what you want? Call it a vision, call it a goal. Do you have a way? I have some ideas of things that I've done, but what would you share? That loan officer, that top producing business person is sitting with you. You know they've got potential. How do you get them to get beyond their block?
Yeah, it's and again, I get to the pleasure and honor of doing this with a lot of people, and some are not, they're not coaching clients per se, but they're business owners, they're entrepreneurs. Again, I'm blessed in what I do. So it's like, I'll do that. But until I get them to do this heavy lifting work of thinking, no hope. So the first thing I would say is get away. I mean, Darrell, I'll be glad to share a few of these documents with you if you want. But you have to, like Darrell said, he took the time away to do this work. We had one of our mentors would say, find your rock. It's like, well, I'm in Chicago and it's January. There's no rock for me to go to. But I found, Darrell, I found my thinking place. And my thinking place was the Lake Geneva Library. Mm-hmm. Libraries became my friend. So I had a local one in my northern suburb of Chicago, and then I had an hour drive up into Wisconsin. Beautiful lake place, whatever. But I had to find my thinking place. So I can go do the heavy lifting of what? Thinking and writing.
Right.
And we live in a world today where thinking and writing, it's just not done. Yeah. And when I see people do it, Darrell, when I see them, I've got an event I do, I call it Unplugged. So that's this 2-day event where we go away and we do this thinking, we do this clarifying, we have some interaction in a small group, but do this work. I mean, that is the first thing to move the ball forward, because otherwise we're just chasing our tail. We're running the race.
Right.
Go take this time of truly unplugging, get out of technology. I mean, there's a little bit of technology I like when you're doing your year in review. It's like, well, I'm kind of stuck, 10 greatest happenings. It's like, okay, well, dude, open up your phone and look at your pictures. It's like,
yeah. Well, the funny thing is, Yeah, part of my yearly work is I go back and I go through the calendar, but it's at the very first of it, and I highlight all the events that meant anything to me. But then then the digital goes away because that's where the calendar lives today. So, but to the point of it, then it gets closed.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Yeah. So I think that's the main point, Darrell. It's like we're here in, mid-January. Take the time. It's like, well, it's too late. December's over for business planning. It's like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You could do a year in review anytime.
Right.
So pick a place, right? Pick a time. Get specific on when you're going to do it. Get some material. There's some Michael Hyatt's got some. I can give you a few documents, but get this stuff clarified.
Right.
I just think there's some principles that are in place to simply think. That is an art that we don't see a lot of right now, to think through things, think all the way through.
Yeah. Powerful stuff. Well, thank you.
Right.
If you want to share those documents,
I'll get those out to you.
I'll get them linked up in the show notes over on the MindShiftPodcast.com website. And Kevin, I always like to just finalize an episode by saying, if it all ended today, what would you want to be most known for in the work that you've done, the life you've lived? What would you want said for you?
There's a biblical verse, 2 Timothy 2:2, if you don't mind me sharing.
Absolutely.
The things that thou hast heard among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men who shall be able to teach others also. Mm. So my mission is that you are teaching someone else. That the people that I've been surrounded with, that they're doing the same for others, and that they in turn teach others.
Keep it going forward, right?
That's it. That's it. That's the one thing.
Kevin, you are amazing. First of all, I just want to thank again publicly you for the blessing, the opportunity of us working together for those 2.5 years. Again, I am here to this day. The podcast, of course, was not listed on that 25-year plan as things changed. But believe me, the impact you've made in my life, the continual relationship and friendship, the fact that you took some time out to join me here on the show, I'm humble, I'm grateful, and forever indebted to the work you didn't force me to do it, but you confronted me on my truth at that moment and said, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? And let's get it done. And you've stood right there by me. So I know you to be exactly 100% of who you say you are. Thank you so much for that. And man, thank you for taking some time out on this show.
Right on, brother. Appreciate you, man.